Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today I want to talk about these terms that you see on Dragon's Den when they're talking through the finances, and just to give a bit of a lowdown as to what they actually mean. So you might have seen the words like turnover, gross profit, gross margin, net profit, and you're like, I don't actually know what that means. So I'm just going to give you a quick lowdown on all of that. But firstly, I'm a super new channel, so I'd be really grateful if you like personal finance to subscribe. That would be amazing. I am a financial analyst in London, even though I'm Irish, but I've been working in the finance space for the last 10 years, so hopefully this kind of video is helpful for you. So let's get right into the video. So the first phrase that you might have heard on Dragon's Den is about turnover, and you might be thinking, is that profit? Like, what kind of number is turnover? So in very simple terms, so let's say you own a jumper company, okay? You buy these beautiful jumpers from abroad and then you sell them in your shop, okay? And let's say each jumper is £20. And let's say in the last 12 months you sold 1,000 of these jumpers, so 1,000 units, you might say, of these jumpers. So to get the turnover, this just means the total amount of sales in a period of time. So if a dragon in Dragon Den asked you the turnover the last 12 months, you'd be like, okay, I sold 1,000 jumpers, they're £20 each in the shop to buy, so that would be £20,000 as a turnover number. It's as simple as that. So your turnover is just your sales before you deduct anything else from it. Another term that they use in Dragon's Den is often the retail price. So I just touched on this briefly. So with your jumper business, for example, your retail price is the price that you sell it at in the shop. So in that example, you sell your jumper for £20 in your shop. So that's your retail price. You also see the term sales price when they talk in Dragon's Den sometimes, and this essentially is the same thing if you own a shop. The retail price and the sales price is the exact same thing, but sales prices also can be used for if you have a wholesaler business, for example. So you are making multiple amount of items for other people to buy and sell in their shop. So your selling price might be £10 to make a jumper, and then the retail price might be £20 for someone else. But if you just own a jumper shop and that's your thing, retail price and selling price are the exact same thing. So another term you hear on Dragon's Den is the product cost. So this should be hopefully very straightforward. The product cost is the cost it was to buy your jumper from abroad. So if, let's say, you buy your jumpers from China and they cost you £10 from that factory in China. So the product cost is literally just the cost of the product. It doesn't talk about the shipping costs from China to the country that you're selling it in, or any sort of taxes or anything else. It's just purely the cost of that jumper to buy it from the factory, so the unit cost. And this is when we get into the kind of juicier details. So often they will talk about your gross margin. So the dragon might say to someone who's in that, tank of a place, to be like, okay, what's your gross margin? So your gross margin is very simple. All it is your selling price of your jumper, let's say, minus your product cost. So in our example, you sell your jumpers for £20, your product cost was £10, so your gross margin is the difference between the two. So your gross margin in this example is £10 per jumper. And similarly to that, they will also ask for, or they may ask for, your gross margin percentage. So you've already worked out your gross margin is £10, which is the difference between your selling price and the product cost price. But just to work out the margin percentage, it's basically the same formula, 20 minus 10, and then divided by your selling price, which is 20. So in this example, because you're selling it for £20 and you're buying it for £10, your gross percentage margin, or gross margin percentage, is 50% in this example. So very straightforward numbers I'm working with here. Obviously, if you have a small business or you are thinking of a business, you can kind of work these out before maybe you start on this business trek. Essentially what they're doing is like trying to understand what your margins are versus the competitive market. So if one of the dragons really knows his jumper market quite well and knows that people usually make 30% gross margin, and you've just told them you make 50% gross margin, that's really good, and really good margin versus the rest of the market. So that's why they're asking these kind of figures. So it's important to understand with the gross margin formula that you don't deduct anything else in that calculation. So as I said, You don't deduct tax, you don't deduct, in this scenario, what the shipping cost from China is to the country that you're selling it in. You don't deduct your salary or any of your other staff salary in this, calculation. It's purely just the selling price minus the cost of the product. And then we get into the final term that I'm going to talk about here. I'll do another video on this, on more terms, if you find it interesting, but the last one I want to talk about here is net profit and then net margin percentage. So your net profit, this is very important for all companies. And what it is the money after you make all your expenses. So that's your shipping, your salary costs, your utilities, the rent of your shop, all those really big important things, okay? So let's say, for example, if we stick with the jumper scenario, so you're selling it for £20, the cost of the product was £10, and let's say everything else like shipping, tax, all the other bits and bobs is about £7 per jumper that you sell out. So that would be 20 minus 10 minus 7 is £3 is what's left over after you've paid all of your other expenses in this scenario. So that would be, as a percentage, again, you do the same thing. So it would be that 3 number divided by your selling price. So 3 divided by 20 is 15% net margin percentage. Okay, so initially you said your gross margin percentage was 50%, which is very high in this scenario. But then after you deduct all the other things like taxes, rent, shipping, etc., anything to do with the expenses that relate to selling that product, you're left with 15% margin, or £3 for every jumper that you sell. So hopefully that was useful. I think these kind of key terms are really important to understand if you're thinking about starting a small business, even a side hustle. If you're buying and selling clothes on Depop, or if you want to open up a store or a pop-up store, it's really important to know these numbers maybe before you start to set your prices, your retail prices. Maybe have a look and see what the market is doing. How much is a woolly jumper, in the UK at the minute? Can you get very good margins? Can you maybe sell it for more of a premium if it's like premium material? All these kind of things, because I think a lot of people fall down where they just set a blanket price of like £20 for everything, but maybe you've got some jumpers where the product cost is £10 and some products where it's £15 to buy in, but you're selling it at the exact same price. Maybe have a bit of a think of what percentage margins are you actually going to make. So that's it, guys. Thanks very much. Hopefully that was helpful. As I said, I'm a super new channel here, so feel free to subscribe if you so desire. I talk about finance mainly, and I tend to do 2 videos a week. So if this was helpful, drop down a comment, and any other ideas that you want to see in terms of finance, just give me a bell. But yeah, that's it, guys. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.